The forest of Omega 742 breathed with an alien silence, its emerald canopy filtering strange green-tinted light across dense underbrush. Jae-Sung Kim moved like a shadow, his body pressed low against the damp ground, each movement calculated and precise. He had been tracking the Kraldin hunting party for 3 solar cycles. Understanding their patterns was more than survival. It was an art form. His military training from Earth's Special Reconnaissance Unit had prepared him for extreme environments, but nothing could have truly prepared him for this moment. The Kraldin were not typical predators. They were a species that lived for the hunt, where every movement was a calculation, every breath a potential strategy. Their biomechanical exosuits hummed with a low, almost musical frequency that seemed to vibrate through the planet's dense vegetation. Jae-Sung's thermal adaptive camouflage shifted colors subtly, mimicking the surrounding foliage. Sweat traced a line down his temple, not from fear but from intense concentration. His equipment was minimal, a survival knife, a partially damaged communication device, and his wits. Overhead, 2 Kraldin scouts moved through the upper branches. Their multi-jointed limbs allowed them to traverse the alien landscape with an almost liquid grace. Each step was silent, each movement deliberate. They were hunting something, but Jae-Sung knew he was about to become an unexpected variable in their plan. His mission had started as a standard deep space reconnaissance. A routine planetary survey had gone catastrophically wrong when his scout ship was damaged by unexpected radiation storms. The crash landing separated him from his team, leaving him alone in this unknown ecosystem. The Kraldin communication signals he had intercepted suggested they were tracking a massive prey, something they referred to in their complex language as the blood render. It was a creature so dangerous that even these expert hunters seemed cautious. Jae-Sung's hearing, enhanced by years of special forces training, caught the subtle vibrations around him. Something was moving, something big. The forest seemed to grow quieter, as if holding its breath in anticipation. A distant screech cut through the silence, not human, not entirely animal. The Kraldin scouts tensed, their exosuits shifting color to match the surrounding environment. They were no longer just hunters, they were becoming part of the landscape. His heart rate remained steady. Years of training had taught him that panic was a luxury no soldier could afford. Each breath was controlled, each muscle ready to respond in a fraction of a second. The first Kraldin scout dropped from the branches about 20 meters from his position. It was massive, easily 2.5 meters tall, with a skeletal exosuit that seemed more alive than mechanical. Multiple sensory tendrils extended from its head, scanning the environment with precision that human technology could only dream of achieving. Jae-Sung knew one wrong move would reveal his position. The Kraldin had sensory capabilities that made human technology look primitive. Their ability to detect heat signatures, molecular changes, and minute environmental disruptions was legendary among galactic reconnaissance teams. Another scout joined the first. Their communication was not verbal, but a series of complex bioelectrical pulses that transmitted information faster than any human language. They were discussing something, their body language suggesting both excitement and caution. Jae-Sung realized he was no longer just a survivor. He had become an unexpected element in their hunt. And in this moment, on this alien world, being unexpected could mean the difference between life and death. The forest continued its alien symphony. Strange bioluminescent plants pulsed with soft light. Distant creature calls echoed through the massive trees. And in the middle of this alien wilderness, a human waited, watched, and prepared. The hunt was about to begin. The ground trembled. Jae-Sung felt it first through the soles of his boots, a deep rhythmic vibration that spoke of something massive approaching. The blood render was coming. Massive predatory creatures were common on alien planets, but this one was different. Its multiple legs moved with a mechanical precision that suggested something between organic life and engineered weapon. Each limb could slice through solid metal, each movement calculated with deadly efficiency. The Kraldin scouts retreated, their exosuits shifting to defensive configurations. They were hunters, But even they recognized this was not a typical prey. Something was wrong. The creature's approach seemed almost intelligent. Jae-sung's hands moved quickly, years of survival training compressed into seconds of pure action. He evaluated his limited resources: a broken communication device, some local vegetation, and his standard-issue survival knife. Most would see hopeless junk. He saw potential. The communication device became a makeshift electrical disruptor. Local vines, when stripped and twisted, created a surprisingly strong fiber network. His knife transformed the surrounding environment into a complex trap system that would make any engineer proud. The blood render crashed through the forest like a living earthquake. Its body was a nightmare of biological engineering: multiple limbs, razor-sharp appendages, and a central mass that seemed to pulse with dark energy. Where organic matter ended and mechanical components began was impossible to determine. Jae-sung's trap wasn't about stopping the creature. It was about understanding it, controlling its movement, creating a tactical advantage where none seemed possible. The first phase of his plan involved sound manipulation. By carefully positioning broken device components, he created a series of acoustic redirections. The creature's own movement would trigger subtle sound waves, confusing its sensory input. Kraldin scouts watched in silent amazement. Their multi-spectrum vision captured every minute detail of the human strategy. What they saw defied their understanding of survival tactics. The blood render triggered the first trap. A complex network of vines suddenly pulled tight, not to restrain, but to guide. The creature's massive body was subtly redirected, its natural movement now controlled by Jae-sung's carefully constructed system. Electrical pulses from the damaged communication device created localized electromagnetic disruptions. The creature's mechanical components began to falter, its movements becoming slightly less precise. Jae-sung remained perfectly still. Movement would break the delicate balance he had created. One wrong step could transform this calculated strategy into instant death. The Kraldin hunting leader, a massive figure with intricate biomechanical augmentations, watched through advanced optical systems. Humans were known in galactic records, but rarely observed in true survival situations. What they were witnessing was beyond simple survival. This was adaptation at its most pure form. The blood render struggled against the invisible network of traps. Each movement became more predictable, more controlled. Jae-sung was not fighting the creature. He was teaching it, guiding it, making it move exactly where he wanted. A distant Kraldin scout transmitted a bioelectrical pulse that translated roughly to, "The human is transforming the environment into a weapon." Survival was more than physical strength. It was about understanding systems, manipulating environments, turning limitations into advantages. The trap's final phase approached. Jae-sung's breathing remained steady. His heart rate showed no increase. This was not panic, this was pure calculated action. The blood render made its final movement, directly into a carefully prepared defensive position that would neutralize its primary attacking capabilities. As dust settled and the forest returned to its strange silence, Jae-sung stood unchanged. The creature was contained. The environment was controlled. The Kraldin scouts looked at each other. Something fundamental had changed in their understanding of survival. A human had just redefined what it meant to be a hunter. The Kraldin Hunting Council gathered in a massive circular chamber carved from living stone. Organic lighting pulsed with bioelectrical energy, casting strange shadows across their assembled forms. Jae-sung stood at the center, surrounded by creatures that could easily tear him apart with a single movement. Tradition demanded a test, not just of strength, but of genetic worth. Their lead elder, a massive figure with augmented limbs and sensory tendrils that moved like living sensors, studied the human. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most were known as traders, or occasional mercenaries, but none had been tested in a Kraldin hunting ritual. The challenge would take place in the forbidden hunting grounds, a terrain that had destroyed civilizations. Massive rock formations that shifted without warning, atmospheric conditions that could change from breathable to toxic in seconds, predatory ecosystems that adapted faster than any known biological system. Jae-sung's assessment was clinical. No fear showed in his eyes, just calculation. The first phase involved navigation, not just moving through the terrain, but understanding its living nature. The forbidden hunting grounds were more than a location. They were a living organism that tested every creature that entered. Kraldin warriors prepared monitoring systems. Multispectrum sensors would track every movement, every biological response. The human would be analyzed at a molecular level. Shi-Won Park, the lead hunting observer, adjusted her advanced sensory equipment. Her role was to document and evaluate. Humans were an unknown variable in their genetic records. The terrain activation began. Massive stone formations started to move. What seemed solid ground could become vertical walls in seconds. Atmospheric. Composition shifted rapidly. Oxygen levels dropping. Toxic spore clouds forming. Temperature variations that could freeze or burn within moments. Jae-sung's first movement surprised the observers. Instead of fighting the terrain, he began to study it. Each shift was a piece of information. Each change was a potential strategy. His military training showed in subtle ways. Movement was not about speed, but about understanding. Where a Kraldin warrior would charge, he calculated. Where another might panic, he observed. The terrain threw its first major challenge. A massive rock formation collapsed, creating a canyon that didn't exist moments before. Toxic spore clouds began to form, creating visibility near zero. Most creatures would die within minutes. Jae-sung created a filtration system, using local vegetation and his minimal equipment. He understood the environment was not just a challenge, it was a living puzzle. Kraldin observers transmitted bioelectrical signals of increasing excitement. The human was not just surviving, he was learning. Each movement became a dance of survival. Jae-sung used the terrain's own energy against itself. Where a rock formation shifted, he anticipated. Where toxic clouds formed, he created micro-barriers. Hours passed. The hunting grounds continued their relentless test. Temperature dropped to levels that should freeze any biological system, pressure variations that should crush any living creature. But Jae-sung adapted. The Kraldin hunting leader's sensory tendrils showed increasing fascination. This was more than survival. This was evolution in real time. As the final phase approached, Jae-sung had transformed from an outsider to something else. Not just a human, not just a survivor, but a potential new definition of adaptive life. The hunting grounds made their final move, a complete environmental collapse that should erase any living creature from existence. Jae-sung stood at the center, calm, calculating, ready. The test was not about defeating the environment. It was about understanding it. And in that moment, he was becoming something more than human. The Kraldin Hunting Council watched in collective silence. A new standard of survival was being defined. The ultimate hunt began at dawn. Not a dawn like humans knew, but an alien sunrise that painted the sky in colors impossible to describe. Jae-sung stood ready, his body a perfect balance of tension and calm. He-won watched from a hidden observation point. Her multi-spectrum vision captured every microscopic detail of the human's preparation. This was more than a hunt. This was a cultural examination. The hunting ground became alive. Terrain shifted like a breathing organism. Rock formations moved. Plant life became potential predators. Atmospheric conditions changed faster than human technology could process. Jae-sung's approach was surgical. Each step calculated, each movement a potential strategy. He understood the environment was not just a location, it was a living challenge. His equipment was minimal. A damaged communication device, a survival knife, strips of local vegetation. Where most would see limitations, he saw possibilities. The first challenge came quickly. A massive predatory formation emerged from ground that moments before seemed solid. Razor-sharp rock structures transformed into moving hunting mechanisms. They moved with an intelligence that suggested something between organic life and mechanical weapon. Most creatures would panic. Jae-sung analyzed. He noticed subtle vibration patterns. The rock formations communicated through microseismic signals. Where others would see random movement, he saw a communication network. His military training compressed complex observations into instant tactical decisions. Movement was not about speed. Movement was about understanding. The rock formations attacked. Massive stone appendages moved with impossible speed. Each strike could crush molecular structures. Each movement was a potential death sentence. Jae-sung didn't dodge. He anticipated. Using the communication device's broken electrical components, he created a micro-frequency disruptor. The device wasn't just a tool. It became an extension of his understanding. The rock formations hesitated. Haiwan's observation systems recorded something unprecedented. The human wasn't fighting the environment. He was communicating with it. Atmospheric conditions changed. Toxic spore clouds formed. Pressure variations that should crush any biological system began to activate. The hunting ground was testing its ultimate weapon. Jae-sung created a filtration system using local vegetation. Where complex technology would fail, simple understanding succeeded. Hours passed. The hunting ground threw everything possible. Temperature variations that should freeze or burn any living creature. Pressure changes that should destroy molecular structures. But Jae-sung adapted. His body became more than human, not through technology, not through genetic modification, but through pure understanding. The Kraldin hunting observers transmitted complex bioelectrical signals. Their communication suggested increasing fascination. This was not just survival, this was evolution in real time. The final phase approached, a complete environmental collapse designed to erase any living creature from existence. Most would see certain death. Jae-sung saw a complex puzzle. He used the terrain's own energy against itself. Where rock formations shifted, he anticipated. Where toxic clouds formed, he created micro-barriers. His movement became a dance, not of survival, but of understanding. The hunting ground made its ultimate move. A complete systemic collapse that should eliminate any possibility of survival. Jae-sung stood at the center, calm, calculating, transformed. Haiwan's observation systems showed something impossible. The human wasn't just surviving, he was becoming something more. The hunt was never about defeating the environment, it was about understanding it. As the final moments approached, Jae-sung had transformed from an outsider to something else. Not just human, not just a survivor. A new definition of life was being written. The Kraldin Hunting Council watched in collective silence. Something fundamental had changed. Survival was no longer about strength. It was about understanding. The Kraldin Hunting Council chamber fell silent. Massive biomechanical structures hummed with ancient energy. Jae-sung stood at the center, transformed by his journey. Haiwan Park stepped forward. Her movement carried the weight of generations of hunting tradition. Multispectrum eyes studied the human with intense concentration. "A hunter like that deserves to pass on his genes," she declared. The words meant more than a simple compliment. In Kraldin culture, this was the highest genetic recommendation possible. A proclamation that recognized not just survival, but evolutionary potential. The hunting leader, a massive figure with augmented limbs and sensory tendrils, activated the genetic assessment protocols. Advanced bioscanning systems began to analyze Jae-sung at a molecular level. Every movement he had made during the ultimate hunt was recorded. Every strategy, every adaptation, became part of a complex genetic evaluation. The scanning process was brutal. Most biological systems would collapse under such intense examination. Jae-sung remained perfectly still. Holographic displays began to show his journey. The way he transformed broken communication devices into survival tools. How he understood the living terrain as a complex communication network. The moments where he didn't just survive, but became part of the environment. The Kraldin had tested countless species. Humans were considered interesting but limited, adaptable but not truly exceptional. This human was different. His genetic profile showed something unprecedented. Not just survival adaptations, but a fundamental understanding of environmental systems. Each challenge had not just been overcome, it had been transformed into a learning opportunity. Haiwan's observation recordings became the center of discussion. How a single human had redefined their understanding of survival. How he had turned limitations into strengths. The genetic assessment continued. Hours passed. The chamber remained in complete silence. Most would have broken under the intense scanning. Jae-sung's body showed no stress response. His heart rate remained steady. His biological systems adapted to each new scanning frequency. The Hunting Council members transmitted complex bioelectrical signals. Their communication suggested something between excitement and fundamental reassessment. Humans were no longer just another species in their galactic records. As the final genetic assessment phase approached, something unexpected happened. The scanning systems began to show evolutionary potential that defied current scientific understanding. Jae-sung was not just surviving, he was demonstrating a new approach to biological adaptation. The hunting leader's sensory tendrils moved with increasing excitement. This was more than an individual assessment. This was a potential shift in their understanding of evolutionary potential. Haiwan approached Jae-sung. Her movement carried centuries of hunting tradition. In her culture, recognition was not about words. It was about fundamental understanding. "You have shown us something new," she transmitted through complex bioelectrical pulses. The chamber's organic lighting pulsed with increasing intensity. The walls seemed to breathe with ancient biological energy. Jae-sung understood something fundamental had changed. He was no longer just a human survivor. He had become a bridge between species. The genetic recommendation was unanimous. Not just survival, not just adaptation, but a new potential for understanding. The Kraldine Hunting Council had found something rare, a creature that didn't just survive, a creature that transformed survival into an art form. As the assessment concluded, something new entered their galactic records, a human who had redefined what it meant to be alive. The legacy was just beginning.